It's a cool autumn morning, and the lobby of Crestwood National Bank is bustling with activity. Employees in astute suits move quickly behind the sleek counters, while customers, some impatient and others simply kill time, wait in line. Among them was Justin, an older black man with a weathered face and a kind smile. His neatly pressed suit was simple but dignified, and he carried a briefcase that looked like it had been used for years. Justin walked with a deliberate step, his staff tapping lightly on the marble floor. As Justin approached the counter, the room seemed to change slightly. Two employees, Selena and Paul, both in their mid-30s, exchanged glances. Their sleek demeanor only wavered slightly, and a delicate frown crept across Selena's face. "Can I help you?" Selena asked, her tone cut short as Justin walked over. "Yes, young girl," Justin replied with a polite smile. "I want support with my account." Paul, who was standing nearby, leaned over and whispered something to Selena. The other customers could barely hear. "Another one of the time wasters," he muttered in his breath. Selena sighed, her impatience palpable as she looked Justin from top to bottom. "Do you have an account here?" she asked, her words dripping with condescension. Justin remained calm, his smile unshakable. "Yes, ma'am, I do. Been a customer here for more than 20 years. "Yes," Selena replied skeptically. "Well, we're going to need to look at some identification." Justin reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet, handing his ID with his firm hands. Selena took it and squinted at it, her expression still suspicious. "Are you sure this is your account?" Paul intervened, stepping closer. "We've had some incidents before." Justin raised his eyebrows, but his voice remained calm. "I'm sure, young man. I've been working in the bank here since before you started working." Subtle insults don't suit Paul. He scoffed and muttered, "Some people think they might walk in here and waste our time." Selena, encouraged by Paul's attitude, pushes ID back to the counter. "Listen, sir, we are very busy today. Maybe you should come back when you're better prepared." Justin's expression remained calm, though a glint of disappointment flashed across his eyes. "I'm ready," he said softly. "I would appreciate it if you could check my account." Instead of answering, Selena motioned for a security guard to stand near the entrance. The guard, a muscular man with a stern face, stepped forward, his presence adding an unnecessary layer of threat. "Is there a problem here?" the guard asked, his voice firm. "No problem," Justin said calmly. "I'm just trying to access my account." Selena bent down and whispered something to the guard, who nodded curly. "Sir, I think you'd better go today," the guard said, pointing to the door. Justin stood still for a moment, gripped his cane a little. The room seemed to become quieter as other customers noticed the sight. Without raising his voice, Justin replied, "Are you asking me to leave without taking care of my business here?" "Yes," Selena said bluntly. "You're keeping the line." Justin looked at her for a long time, his gaze steady but unreadable. Then, with a slight nod, he turned around and started walking towards the exit, his stick tapping again. The door closed behind him, leaving the employees to continue their work, unaware of the storm that was raging just below the surface. Justin walked into the bank at a slow, deliberate pace, his hands tucked into his neatly pressed jacket pockets. His posture was slightly bent because of his age, but his eyes carried a glint of wisdom and experience. It was late afternoon, and the bank was bustling with activity. Customers line up at the counter, while bank employees in astute suits move quickly from table to table, interacting with customers or making phone calls. Justin patiently approached the front desk, where a young man, in his early 20s, was sitting browsing his phone. His name tag is David. Without looking up, David gestured contemptuously and said, "Yes, what do you need?" Justin smiled politely. "Good afternoon. I'm wondering if I can talk to someone about opening a corporate account. I have some business issues to discuss." David finally looked up, his expression instantly becoming cold. He swept over Justin's appearance. A slightly frayed coat, an old-fashioned hat, no fancy briefcase or watch, and his face distorted into a smile. "Company account? Are you sure you're in the right place, sir?" he asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Justin didn't let the stab confuse him. Yes, I'm sure. I'd like to talk to a manager if I can. Before David could answer, a second employee, a woman named Iris, walked by and eavesdropped on the conversation. She glanced at Justin, then leaned over and whispered to David. Is he like someone who can even afford to buy a corporate account? Maybe it's just a waste of our time. Justin caught the comment but chose to remain calm. He repeated his request, this time telling both of them. I would appreciate it if someone could help me. I have all the necessary documents with me. David exchanged a glance with Iris, rolling his eyes. Look, sir, this is a high-end financial institution. We don't have time for anything you're trying to do here. David's sharp tone caught the attention of other customers and employees nearby. Some whispered to each other, while others seemed annoyed. Iris decided to escalate the situation. She stepped forward, her voice firm but condescending. Sir, we have policies. Without an appointment and proper credentials, we cannot process requests like yours. And honestly, this branch handles clients of a certain caliber. The words were stinging, but Justin kept his composure. I understand the policies and I respect them. However, I believe that if you take a moment to review my paperwork, you will find that I meet the requirements. Iris laughed briefly. Papers? You're kidding, aren't you? Sir, I think it's best to take your business elsewhere. We're pretty busy here. At this time, a small crowd had formed. Some customers stare at the way Justin is being treated, while others avoid their gaze, not wanting to interfere. A middle-aged woman whispered to her companion, Why do they treat him like that? He didn't do anything wrong. David, sensing the growing tension, decides to end the interaction. Okay, that's enough, he said loudly. Sir, I will have to ask you to leave. You're disrupting the workflow here. Justin hesitated, glancing around at the witnesses. His calm demeanor never wavered, but there was a glint of disappointment in his eyes. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a neatly folded document. Maybe if you look at this, it can clear up any misunderstandings, he said. David barely glanced at the paper before pushing it towards Justin. I said leave. We don't have time for this. Iris nodded in agreement, walking closer to Justin as if to lead him out. I heard him. This is not the place for you. At that moment, the third employee, a subordinate bank employee named Mia, stepped up hesitantly. She has been monitoring the interaction from her desk and is feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the way things are going. Maybe we should look at his documents, Mia said softly, telling David and Iris. There will be no harm in checking. David glared at her. Mia, stay away from this. We know what we're doing. But Mia still persevered. This time her voice was firmer. He didn't cause any trouble. He just asks for help. Isn't that our job? Iris turned to Mia, her tone cold. Mia, if you want to waste your time, go ahead. But don't expect us to entertain people who randomly think they can open a corporate account. The tension in the room was palpable. Justin, sensing the hostility, decided to step back. It's okay, he said quietly. I don't mean to cause a floating incident. I'm going to take my work elsewhere. He turned to leave, his steps slow but dignified. When he arrived at the door, he paused for a moment, glancing back at the employees who had chased him too fast. There was no anger in his eyes, only a quiet sadness. Without saying a word, he walked out on a cold afternoon, leaving behind the whispers of witnesses. Back inside, David and Iris smiled smugfully, proud of how they had handled the situation. People like him think they can walk in and ask for attention, David muttered in his breath. However, Mia felt an unpleasant knot in her stomach. She couldn't shake off the feeling that they had made a terrible mistake. After stepping out of the bank, Justin stood on the side of the road, looking up at the gray sky of the late afternoon. He took a slow, deep breath, trying to dispel the feeling of disappointment in his heart. Justin prepared very well for this meeting, bringing all the necessary documents and the belief that he would be treated fairly. However, things did not go as he expected. As he walked to the parking lot, Justin pulled out his phone and made a call. Hello, Miss Alice, he said, in a low but clear voice. I just left the bank. There are some things I need to share with you. On the other end of the line, Alice, a talented lawyer and someone Justin trusts, listens to him recount the whole thing. Not only did they refuse to help, Justin said, his voice calm but somewhat hard, they also treated me like I didn't deserve to be there. Alice pondered for a few seconds before replying. I see, Mr. Reynolds. We will handle this legally and skillfully. You kept the documents and everything involved, didn't you? Yes, Justin replied, his eyes flashing with determination. But what I want is more than just an apology. I want them to recognize the problem and change their behavior. Alice agrees and promises to plan her next step. Meanwhile, at the bank, the atmosphere is gradually returning to normal, but not for everyone. Mia sat at her desk, unable to concentrate. She couldn't stop thinking about how David and Iris had treated Justin. We were wrong, Mia muttered, loud enough for a nearby colleague to hear. They shouldn't have treated him like that. The colleague looked at her, looking surprised. What do you mean? Mia paused for a moment and then replied, just because he doesn't look like our regular customers doesn't mean he doesn't deserve respect. We should have helped him, or at least looked at the papers he was carrying. Mia's story began to spread within the bank, and dissatisfaction with how David and Iris handled the situation also surfaced in a few discreet conversations. A week later, Justin returned to the bank. But this time he didn't go alone. He was joined by Alice, and a journalist known for investigating discriminatory practices. Justin's story was noticed by the media thanks to Alice sharing it with her relationships. As soon as Justin walked in, his presence immediately attracted attention from everyone. David and Iris saw him and immediately stiffened. But this time, instead of avoiding their gaze, Justin walked straight to the counter and said, I want to see your manager. Within minutes, the branch manager, Mr. Bennett, appeared. He was polite, but his eyes were clearly tense when he saw Justin with Alice and the journalist. Justin calmly but decisively narrates the whole story in front of the manager and those present. After he finished speaking, Alice added, the behavior that your staff has shown is not only unprofessional, but also has clear signs of discrimination. We have all the evidence, and if necessary, we are ready to take this matter to court. Bennett, pale-faced, immediately apologized to Justin, insisting that the incident would be investigated and dealt with strictly. But Alice didn't accept it easily. An apology is necessary, she said, but what's more important is a commitment to real change. Mr. Bennett, after apologizing, quickly arranged for Justin and Alice to have a private meeting to resolve the case. In the large meeting room with soft light, Bennett saw the pressure palpable. He opened with sincerity. First of all, I would like to express my sincere apologies to Mr. Reynolds. I am very sorry for the experience that he had to endure at this branch. I promise that we will not let the same thing happen again. Justin nodded slightly, but his gaze remained solemn. Mr. Bennett, your apology is respectable. But as I said, what I need is more than just words. I want to see action. Alice continued, her voice sharp but still professional. We propose a specific action plan, which includes retraining staff in customer service and anti-discrimination. Besides, there needs to be an effective monitoring policy to ensure that attitudes like David and Iris will no longer exist. Bennett took careful notes, then promised to organize a comprehensive reform program. We will start with mandatory training sessions. I will also look at how to reorganize the customer intake and service process to prevent similar situations. Justin sat in silence for a moment, then said, I've spent more than 20 years trusting this bank. I hope you don't disappoint me again. David and Iris were summoned to the manager's office the next morning. Under Bennett's supervision, they were asked to immediately participate in a 12-week cognitive rehabilitation program. Not only that, the two were also transferred to work so that they did not have direct contact with customers during the review period. Mia, who had stood up for Justin, was invited to join the team that developed the new employee training program. This is not only a recognition but also a great motivation for other employees in the bank. Justin's story was shared in a major newspaper with the headline, A Loyal Customer, a Bitter Experience. The banking system needs to look again. The article attracted great attention from the public. Many sympathetic customers shared similar stories, prompting the bank to issue a public statement. In particular, the bank is committed to changing employee training processes, strengthening internal oversight, and implementing initiatives for equity and diversity. Justin received a lot of encouragement and appreciation from the community, but he knew that this journey was not over. Justin was invited to be a speaker at a seminar on customer service and social justice organized by the bank. As he stepped onto the podium, he looked down at the auditorium, where David, Iris, Mia, and many other bank employees were located. "Change is never easy," he began, his voice warm but powerful. "But change is necessary. I'm not here to criticize or blame. I stand here to call for awareness and responsibility for each of us." Justin's gaze swept across the auditorium. "I'm not just talking about this bank. I talk about all areas of society. We need to learn to respect one another, regardless of status, skin color, or appearance. And to do that, we have to start with ourselves." The whole auditorium applauded. David and Iris, sitting at the back, bowed their heads, their faces full of thought. They have participated in the re-education program and realized many things about themselves. The bank does not stop at training courses. They began sponsoring community education programs, encouraging diversity in hiring, and organizing events to listen to clients. With Justin, he not only fought for himself, but also opened a door of hope for many others. It is proof that as long as one person dares to stand up, the whole system can change. His journey became a symbol of patience, compassion, and determination to make a difference. A few years later, Justin Reynolds' story was no longer just an event at the bank, but became a national symbol of fairness and innovation in the financial services industry. After the initial reforms, Crestwood Bank not only changed its internal policies but also actively partnered with nonprofits to develop programs to raise awareness of diversity and inclusion. The program, called Listening to Customers, Learning from Differences, attracted hundreds of other banks and businesses to participate. Amanda and Patrick, two former employees who participated in Justin's proposed training program, have now become active leaders in the movement. Amanda manages the customer relations department, regularly organizing experience sharing sessions between employees and customers. Patrick, as branch manager, has strongly promoted the customer is a partner policy, turning every small deal into an opportunity to build trust. Justin did not stop at reforms at Crestwood Bank. He has offered to serve as an advisor to major financial institutions and has appeared at conferences on social justice and corporate responsibility. His stories, although simple, have a strong pervasiveness, making people think about how to treat each other in work and life. One of the most memorable moments was when Justin was invited to speak at the National Conference on Customer Service and Social Equality. In front of thousands of spectators, he said, "Change does not come from big policies but from small daily actions. Every time we choose to listen instead of judge, every time we treat others with compassion instead of prejudice, we are building a better society." David and Iris, two employees who have mistreated Justin, have made significant changes after training and hands-on experience. Iris, who used to have a contemptuous attitude towards customers, is now a coach in customer service training programs, sharing her own story as a lesson. David, who was initially opposed, is now at the forefront of improving the banking system to better serve customers, especially vulnerable groups. He shared in an interview, "I was wrong, but thanks to Justin, I learned to look at myself and make corrections. The most important thing I learned was humility." One autumn evening, Justin receives a letter from a young girl named Clara. She wrote, "Mr. Reynolds, I am a new employee at Crestwood Bank. On my first day at work, I heard about his story. It not only taught me about fairness, but it also inspired me to work with my heart. I want to thank you for paving the way for us." Justin smiled as he read the letter. For him, this journey is not to become a hero but to create positive, small, but long-lasting change. Crestwood Bank is today known as an exemplary model in the financial industry. But above all, Justin Reynolds' story serves as a reminder that great change always starts with brave people who dare to stand up for justice.